On a stormy night in Saginaw, Michigan, a young waitress unknowingly serves a legend and sparks a chain of events that will shatter her life, test her spirit, and unlock a destiny far beyond the walls of McDonald's. The rain came down like it had something to prove. Sheets of cold water slid down the fogged-up windows of the McDonald's off Bay Road in Saginaw, Michigan. Inside, the fluorescents buzzed a little too loudly, flickering above plastic booths and stale fries. A drive-thru order beeped in the distance, but Ayana Brooks barely noticed. She was mopping near the front counter, earbuds in, letting a lo-fi beat drown out the humdrum. Ayana was 22, wiry but strong, with a long braid snaking down her back and a gaze that often seemed far away, even while taking orders. Most people saw a tired black girl in a McDonald's uniform with scuffed sneakers and a fake smile. No one ever noticed the calluses on her hands from hours gripping a tennis racket, or the early morning bruises on her knees from falling on cracked courts before her shifts started. Tonight was dragging. The storm had emptied the dining room, except for an older couple sipping black coffee and two teenage boys glued to their phones. Ayana's back ached. She had just pulled an 11-hour shift. One more table, and she could clock out. The door jingled. She turned, mop still in hand. A woman stepped in, pulling her coat tight against the wind. Her hoodie was pulled low over her face, and she moved like someone used to drawing as little attention as possible. But something about her, the calm in her stride, the way she scanned the room like she'd been here before, made Ayana pause. The woman took a corner booth, her fingers tapping against a water-streaked phone screen. When Ayana came over, with a laminated menu, the woman gave a small smile. "What's good here?" Ayana offered the usual spiel. "People swear by the quarter pounder. I like the filet-o-fish. But that might just be because I've smelled too many burgers," the woman chuckled, voice warm but guarded. "Fish it is, then." As Ayana keyed in the order, she caught a better glimpse of the woman's face. Light brown skin, soft lines. Near the eyes, a hint of something familiar. She looked like someone Ayana had seen before, not here, but somewhere else. Maybe on a screen. Maybe once on the faded poster in her childhood bedroom that had long since curled at the edges. "You ever play tennis?" the woman asked suddenly. Ayana blinked. "What?" The woman motioned toward her hands. "You've got grip blisters, and your forearms built like you've been swinging something heavy." A cold weight settled in Ayana's stomach. "Yeah, just a little. Used to hit around at Wicky's Park. Nothing serious. Doesn't look like nothing." Ayana shrugged, heart kicking up. She didn't know why this woman was asking, but something about her eyes made it hard to lie. "I'm trying, still training, but it's tough." The woman nodded like she understood too much. "You got talent?" Ayana hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, I do." The woman smiled again, this time slower, more knowing. "Good. You should hold on to that." The fish sandwich came, and they didn't speak again for a while. Ayana busied herself with wiping down a ketchup-stained table, glancing over every so often. The woman ate methodically, gaze distant, like she wasn't really tasting the food. When she finally stood to leave, she reached into her coat and froze. Her expression shifted as her hands searched deeper. She looked up at Ayana, brows drawing together. "I left my wallet." Ayana waved it off before she could say anything else. "It's fine. I got it." The woman's face darkened with embarrassment. "No, really, I can come back." "It's okay." Ayana's voice softened. "I've had worse days. Think of it as a good deed." For a moment, they locked eyes, and something passed between them, something unsaid. The woman hesitated, then reached out and touched Ayana's hand just for a second. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Really?" Ayana smiled and turned back toward the register. It was only when the woman left, and the storm swallowed her into the parking lot, that Ayana realized she was still shaking. There was something so unmistakable about her presence. And as she stepped out to toss the trash later, something caught her eye. An SUV idling near the far end of the lot, driver door open, and a tall man in a black cap waiting. The woman slipped into the back seat, barely visible. Then the car peeled off into the night. 3 days passed. Ayana had nearly forgotten about the encounter when a customer posted a photo on Twitter. A grainy image taken through the window of Ayana at the counter with the woman. The caption read, "This young lady at McDonald's just covered Serena Williams' meal like it was nothing. Humble hearts still exist." Ayana stared at the screen in the break room, phone shaking in her hands. The tweet had thousands of likes, dozens of comments, and, yes, when she zoomed in, it was definitely Serena Williams. Her mouth went dry. Her hands tingled. She didn't have time to process it. A manager called her into the office that same afternoon. "We've got a problem," he said, sliding his phone across the desk. Ayana looked at the screen. The tweet again, this time with company tags and a flurry of corporate responses. She could already see where it was heading. "You know we have a zero-tolerance policy," he continued. "Paying for a customer's meal, celebrity or not, is theft under company policy. But I didn't know—" Doesn't matter. She was let go on the spot. Just like that, her only income was gone. The training fees she scraped together from her night shifts, gone. Her dreams, barely held together with duct tape and determination, now felt like they were unraveling one thread at a time. At home, the lights flickered under an overdue bill. Her rackets leaned in the corner like forgotten relics. She tried applying to local shops, even a grocery store, but once her name was linked to the Serena story, first admired, then scrutinized, employers got nervous. She might be a distraction. She's internet famous. Who knows what'll happen next? Every door closed before it even opened. And as the rain returned to Saginaw 1 week later, Ayana sat on the bench at Wicks Park under the broken tennis light, soaked to the bone, racket in hand, wondering if maybe she was stupid to believe this dream ever had a shot. She had no idea her phone was about to buzz with a message that would change everything. It was short, simple. "Hi, Ayana. It's Serena." She read it 5 times, once for shock, once for doubt. Then 3 more to make sure her eyes weren't playing tricks on her. She sat in stunned silence under the dim tennis court floodlight that flickered like a dying star. The court around her was puddled and abandoned, the chain-link fence rattling with wind. The storm had thinned into a whisper, but the clouds still hung low and heavy above the trees. In the distance, a train moaned through the city, its sound long and lonely. Ayana's fingers hovered over the screen. She wanted to respond, needed to, but what could she even say? "Is this really you?" She typed it, paused, then deleted it. Too awkward. "Thank you for the message." Too formal. It sounded like something she'd say to a boss, not Serena freaking Williams, but before she could overthink it further, another message came through. "I didn't forget you. You helped me when you didn't have to. I want to talk. Really talk. Can you video chat tonight?" Ayana's heart leapt. She stared at the message until the words blurred. Then she looked around at the soggy court, the limp net, the shoes soaked through to her socks, and she laughed. A bitter, breathless sound. She wiped her palms on her hoodie and typed back, "Yeah, I'm free now." Her phone buzzed barely 30 seconds later. Incoming FaceTime. She swallowed the panic in her throat and hit accept. The screen flickered. And then, there she was. Serena Williams in a soft gray hoodie, no makeup, curls pulled into a messy bun, sitting in what looked like a quiet room filled with trophies and warm lighting. Her eyes locked onto Ayana's, and she gave a small, genuine smile. "Ayana," she said softly, "you okay?" "The dam nearly broke right then. Ayana faltered. "Is this really happening?" Serena nodded. "Yeah, it is." Ayana tried to sit up straighter, brushing water off her face. "I didn't know. It was you that night. I swear I wasn't trying to—" "I know," Serena interrupted gently. "That's why I wanted to reach out. You didn't treat me like a celebrity. You treated me like a person with kindness. And then I saw what happened to you after. Ayana looked away, shame burning through her. They fired me. Said I violated policy. Then every job I applied to after kept giving me this look, like I was some publicity risk. Serena's eyes narrowed slightly, voice cooling with quiet anger. They punished you for doing something good. That doesn't sit right with me. It's whatever, Ayana muttered, forcing a shrug. I'm used to things falling apart. There was a pause. No, Serena said, that's not whatever. That's what this world tries to do to people like us, especially young black women with ambition. It pushes and pushes until we break or give up. But I see something in you, Ayana. I saw it that night, and I see it now. Ayana's throat tightened. What do you mean? I mean, Serena said, sitting forward, I want to help. Silence. Ayana blinked. Help? How? I've already spoken to a few people, Serena continued. There's a tennis academy I trust in Atlanta. Top-tier coaching, real resources, not just a factory for rich kids. I can get you in. I'll sponsor your training, housing, everything. But it won't be easy. It's not a handout. It's a challenge. Ayana sat frozen, a racket still clenched in her lap. Her heart was pounding. I don't know what to say. Serena smiled again. Say yes, and then mean it. That night, Ayana barely slept. She lay on the thin mattress in her grandmother's old room, walls still covered in faded newspaper clippings of Venus and Serena from the early 2000s. She stared at the ceiling as her heart raced with possibility and fear. In equal measure, could she really leave Saginaw? Could she walk away from the life she knew, the one that had made her, toughened her, broken her, and risk starting over? She thought of her grandmother, who passed 2 years ago, the woman who'd first put a racket in her hand at the public courts on Genesee and 20th. This game ain't built for us, Grandma used to say, so if you want to play, you better learn to fight harder, run faster, and stand taller than anyone expects you to. She thought about the people who'd snickered at her beat-up sneakers or rolled their eyes when she said professional tennis, like it was a punchline. But she also thought of Serena's voice, calm, grounded, believing in her. The next morning, Ayana packed everything she owned into one duffel bag, kissed the court on 20th Street goodbye, and boarded a bus headed south. Atlanta hit her like a wall, the heat, the noise, the motion. The expectation. The academy was a sprawling facility nestled among tall trees and glass buildings. The courts were pristine, the players fast and focused, the trainers sharp-eyed and blunt. Nobody cared about her viral moment. Nobody mentioned Serena except Coach Rivas, a former pro with a military buzz cut and a gravelly voice. Coach Rivas met her at the gate on day one. So you're the McDonald's girl, he said, arms crossed. Ayana stiffened. That's me. You've got fire, but fire's only useful if you know where to aim it. I know where I'm going, he grunted. We'll see. The training was brutal. Her first week left her sore, frustrated, and seconds from quitting. She was behind on footwork drills, her backhand fell apart under pressure, and another girl, a lean, elite player from New York named Brielle, didn't even try to hide her disdain. You're not built for this, Brielle sneered one day. During wind sprints, you got in off a pity story. That don't make you a player? Ayana didn't respond. She wanted to shove back, scream, but she remembered what her grandmother used to say, let 'em talk. You do the work, so she stayed silent and ran harder. But late that night, after hours on the court alone, when her legs trembled and her breath came in sharp gasps, Ayana finally let herself feel it, the fear that maybe Brielle was right, that maybe she was just a good story, not a good athlete. Her phone buzzed on the bench beside her. New message, Serena Williams. Just 3 words. Don't you dare. Ayana stared at it, heart stuttering. That's when she knew someone was watching. Someone still believed. But the real test was only just beginning, because Brielle wasn't just another player. She was the Academy's star, and she wasn't done with Ayana yet. Brielle walked like the courts belonged to her. Tall, angular, all sharp elbows and cleaner footwork than a metronome. Her serve cracked like thunder, and when she walked past Ayana, she didn't just pass her, she sliced through her space like it wasn't there to begin with. The academy staff adored Brielle. She was already ranked in the junior top 50, had sponsorship murmurs circling her like vultures, and came from a family that hosted charity galas and sipped from silver cups. She was everything Ayana wasn't: polished, pedigreed, and expected to win, but she saw Ayana as something else entirely, a threat. It started subtle. Coach Rivas would call for doubles drills, and Brielle would make a face the moment she was paired with Ayana. "I'll take the other side," she'd say, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Don't want the pity point brigade getting in my rhythm." The first time it happened, Ayana just smiled it off, laughed with her mouth, not her eyes. But it didn't stop there. At lunch, Brielle passed Ayana's table with a clique of other girls and said, "You should trademark your sob story before someone else cashes in." The second week, Ayana returned to her locker to find her racket. String slashed clean through, her bag half unzipped and damp inside. No one claimed it. No one had to. Ayana didn't report it. She didn't even mention it to Coach Rivas. Because if she did, it would feed into Brielle's story that Ayana wasn't strong enough to survive this world, that she was just noise, not talent. So instead, Ayana bought new strings with what little she had left and showed up to practice early the next day. Face like stone, Rivas noticed. He didn't say anything, not then, but he nodded once, faint and approving. Day by day, Ayana carved out her place in the academy. She stopped thinking about being better than everyone. She just focused on being better than yesterday. Her footwork got tighter. Her serve, once inconsistent, began landing with real power. She studied the game late at night, watching old clips of Serena and Venus on her phone with the brightness turned down, mimicking their movements in the mirror. But every time she walked into the gym or stepped onto the court, she felt Brielle's eyes on her, cold, calculating, waiting. Then came the announcement. Intra-Academy Rankings Tournament. 2 weeks out. Players seeded based on current performance. Top 3 would be flown to Miami for a regional showcase. Pro scouts, media, even potential sponsors. It was the chance Ayana had been praying for, but that also meant only 3 spots. And one of them already had Brielle's name etched in stone. Ayana wasn't seeded at all. "Don't take it personal," another player told her in the locker room. "They just don't think you'll last the first round." Ayana nodded, tying her shoes tighter than necessary. Let them underestimate her. Let them leave her off the bracket. She was done playing by their expectations. 2 days before the tournament, Ayana stayed late to practice. The courts were empty, save for the janitor humming to himself. Ayana was dripping sweat, her body screaming after hours of repetition. But she wouldn't stop. Couldn't. "You over-rotate on your cross-court forehand," a voice called out. Ayana turned. Brielle stood behind the chain-link fence, arms crossed. She looked like she'd just left a photo shoot. Fresh braids, clean hoodie, flawless. "You always watch people practice?" Ayana asked. Brielle tilted her head. "Only the ones I'm going to dismantle." Ayana's jaw tightened. "So you came all the way down here for that?" "No," Brielle said smoothly. "I came to make you a deal." Ayana frowned. "What kind of deal?" Brielle stepped closer. Her tone dropped low, almost too calm. "Don't enter the tournament." Ayana blinked. "Excuse me? You heard me?" Brielle smiled without warmth. "You've got a cute story. But this next week, it's not about charity. It's about elite performance, real talent. You don't belong in that top bracket, and we both know it, so don't embarrass yourself trying." Ayana took a slow breath, her racket still in hand. "You think I'm scared of you?" "No," Brielle said, leaning in just enough. "I think you're desperate, and desperate people crack." Ayana said nothing. "Do the smart thing," Brielle added, stepping back. "Stick to the undercard matches. Keep your little redemption arc alive. No shame in knowing your lane." With that, she turned and walked off, her footsteps vanishing into the dark. Ayana stood on the court, heart pounding in her throat. She looked up at the moon above the trees. half full, just like how she'd always felt. But something in her was done shrinking. She stayed on that court another hour, practicing the exact shot Brielle had critiqued, cross-court forehand, over and over, until her arm screamed for mercy and her shoes were soaked with grit. She didn't text Serena that night, didn't want to ask for advice or comfort. This had to be hers. The next morning, when the tournament list was finalized, Coach Rivas pinned it to the board outside the locker room. Ayana Brooks, wild card entry. First round match, Ayana versus Brielle Winters. The hallway fell silent. Ayana read it twice, then turned and walked to the court. This time, everyone moved out of her way. Ayana didn't strut. She didn't smirk or posture like the others. She simply walked with a quiet, coiled focus that made the hallway feel smaller, tighter. Her sneakers barely made a sound against the polished concrete floor, but every eye turned toward her, tracking her like a storm moving low and slow across a flat plain. Even the ones who hadn't said a word to her since she arrived stepped back. At the court door, she paused and rolled her shoulders once, just like she used to before early morning solo matches in Saginaw, when no one but pigeons and frost were watching. The weight of her duffel bag dug into her shoulder. She hadn't slept more than 3 hours last night. Her nerves had been vibrating, her mind replaying Brielle's words over and over. Desperate people crack. Ayana knew what desperation felt like. She'd lived it. But now it was fuel. The day of the match dawned humid and gray, with a heavy sky that threatened rain but held off, just barely. It was like the weather itself was holding its breath. Ayana stepped onto court 3 just after noon, the bleachers only half filled with academy staff and players, but the buzz in the air was undeniable. Even the other seeded athletes had come to watch this one. Everyone wanted to see if the McDonald's girl would fold under pressure, or if Brielle would finally be forced to sweat. Brielle arrived 10 minutes late. She wore pristine, white, heady, to toe like she was preparing for a coronation, not a contest. Her expression was unreadable behind mirrored sunglasses, but her walk, like always, oozed entitlement. She didn't warm up, she didn't stretch. She just nodded at the umpire, pulled off her jacket in one fluid motion, and gave Ayana a tight smile. "You look nervous," she said, low enough so only Ayana could hear. Ayana adjusted her grip on her racket and replied without looking at her. "You look late." They took their positions. The air was thick, the crowd unusually quiet. First serve, Brielle. It came fast, over 110 mempore, and clipped the inside edge of the service box with surgical precision. Ayana barely got her racket on it. Ace, 15 love. Another serve, ace, 30 love. Bye. The time the first game was over, Ayana hadn't landed a single point. Brielle raised one brow as they switched sides, muttering just loud enough, "Told you, desperate." Ayana didn't flinch, but inside her chest burned, not from anger, from control. The second game began, Ayana serving. She bounced the ball once, twice. The echoes of rubber against hardcourt snapped through the air. Her first serve missed, long. But the second was solid, clean. Brielle returned it, but Ayana was already there. Her feet moved on instinct, and she sliced it back with tight spin. Brielle lunged, missed. 15 love. A few murmurs rippled through the crowd. Ayana steadied her breath. Her grandmother's voice whispered in the back of her mind, "First points don't matter, first rhythm does." She won the next point, and the next. 1. By the third game, Ayana had found her footing. She stopped playing Brielle's pace and started playing hers, not rushed, not scared. She took the ball early, used angles, wore Brielle down with long rallies that forced her off her game. Brielle, for the first time in a long time, looked uncertain. But the fourth game changed everything to we. 30-30, Brielle hit a short drop shot tight over the net. Ayana sprinted, lungs burning, and barely flicked it back. Brielle scrambled and lobbed it high. Ayana turned, backpedaling, eyes locked on the sky. She leapt. Time slowed. She could feel her body in the air, her arm arching back, racket slicing. Forward, and just before impact, her foot caught the edge of the baseline. She landed wrong, hard, her ankle twisted with a sickening pop. She crumpled to the ground. Gasps burst from the bleachers. The umpire stood. Coach Rivas jumped from the sidelines. Ayana curled in on herself, teeth clenched against the rising pain, her vision blurred. Not from tears, yet, but from the sting of disbelief. Brielle stood on her side of the court, expression unreadable. A hush fell. Then Brielle walked forward, slowly, deliberately. Ayana braced herself, but instead of offering help, Brielle leaned down just enough for Ayana to hear and whispered, "Looks like the story ends here." Ayana looked up at her, face flushed, teeth bared, and for the first time the pain vanished beneath a fresh, white-hot rage. She shoved herself upright. "No," she growled. "It doesn't." The medic reached her, kneeling beside her. "We need to check it. Might be a sprain, or worse. You might not be able to Thus, "I'm finishing the match," she said. "But I said I'm finishing." Coach Rivas approached, jaw clenched. But there was a flicker in his eyes, respect, or maybe fear, that stopped him from arguing. The umpire gave her a minute. Ayana took it, limping to the bench, wrapping her ankle as tight as she could, hands trembling. Every step sent daggers up her leg, but she didn't care. She'd played through worse. She had survived worse. When she stepped back onto the court, the silence was replaced by a murmur of awe. Players whispered to each other. Phones came out. Someone was recording. Ayana gritted her teeth, bounced the ball once, and served. She would not be the girl who bowed out. She would not be the girl who broke. The match pushed on, grueling and brutal. Brielle tried to target her injury, sending shots wide, forcing her to run. But Ayana adapted. She read the angles, relied on anticipation, not speed. Her rallies became chess matches, forcing Brielle to overhit in frustration. They split the next 4 games for 3. Each point now came at a cost. Ayana's foot throbbed like a drumbeat, her entire leg a column of fire. Sweat poured down her face, but the pain anchored her. On her next serve, she hit a line shot, pure, blistering, right past Brielle. The crowd erupted. She didn't celebrate. She didn't smile. She turned her back, reset, but Brielle was unraveling. Ayana saw it in her footwork, in her breath, in the way she cursed under it when another shot clipped the net and fell dead on her side. By the 7th game, Brielle slammed her racket to the ground after a double fault. It cracked. Silence. Ayana didn't flinch. Coach Rivas stood, arms crossed. Not smiling, but watching, Brielle called for a new racket, but the damage was done. Not to the racket, to her aura, because for the first time since arriving, Ayana wasn't chasing Brielle's game. Brielle was chasing hers. But just as Ayana prepared to serve match point, something in the crowd shifted. Voices, movement, security. Stepping in, she glanced up, her breath caught. A man in a dark suit had appeared courtside, whispering to one of the academy directors. Serena had told her to be ready for anything, but no one told her who was watching this match, and why their presence would change everything. Ayana stood frozen at the baseline, racket in hand, ankle pulsing like it had a heartbeat of its own. Match point, 1 shot away, but the moment had shifted. The crowd wasn't watching her anymore. Eyes had turned to the man in the dark suit near the fence line, mid-40s. Lean, with silver streaks at his temples and a sharpness in his posture that screamed authority. He whispered something to one of the directors, who nodded quickly and pointed toward the court. Ayana squinted against the sunlight streaking through the clouds. She didn't recognize the man, but the logo on his lanyard stood out, USTA, United States Tennis Association. She felt her chest tighten. Not from nerves. This was different. This was bigger. This wasn't just a scout or a coach. This was someone who made decisions, someone who opened or closed doors. Brielle saw it too. Her head snapped toward the bleachers. Her lips parted in surprise for just a second, then settled into a smirk. A cruel, practiced one. And that's when Ayana understood this wasn't a coincidence. Brielle had invited him. The silence around the court thickened. As Ayana prepared for her serve, she bounced the ball once, twice. Her hand shook. She forced herself to breathe. She wasn't just serving to win now. She was serving under judgment. Every movement, every twitch would be catalogued and weighed, not just by the audience, but by a man whose job was to decide who was next. She looked across the net. Brielle was ready, knees bent, but her eyes flicked toward the official. Again, like she was saying, "Watch what I do next. Watch me bury her." Ayana could hear the old voices now, ones she hadn't let in for months. "Girls like you don't go pro. You're not country club bred. You're a novelty, not a threat." Her grip tightened. She steadied herself, ankles screaming, as she shifted her weight forward. She tossed the ball into the air, held her breath, and served. The sound of the ball hitting her strings echoed like a gunshot. It sailed across the net, clean and deep. Brielle was there, of course she was, but the return was too high. Ayana pounced. She stepped in, pain surging up her leg like fire, and struck the ball down the line with everything she had left. It was perfect. The ball kissed the chalk on Brielle's left sideline, just in. The line judge raised a hand, match Ayana Brooks. The crowd didn't explode, not exactly. It erupted, a burst of surprise and disbelief and respect, all tangled together. Some stood, some clapped in disbelief. Coach Rivas let out a low whistle. A few of the other players exchanged glances that weren't just acknowledgement. They were recalibration. Ayana didn't celebrate. She bent over, hands on knees, breathing hard. The pain in her ankle now impossible to ignore. Her vision shimmered at the edges. Her body had given her everything it had, and now it wanted payment. As she hobbled toward the net, Brielle was already there, arms folded. "Don't get comfortable," she muttered under her breath. Ayana met her gaze. "You think I am?" Their handshake was brief, brittle. As Ayana turned to leave the court, the man in the suit approached her directly. "Miss Brooks?" She paused, swallowing 1,000 thoughts. He extended a hand. "Aaron Caldwell, USDA Talent Development Director." Ayana shook his hand, surprised at how steady hers felt. "That was some performance," he said. "Grit, control, more composure than some of our ranked juniors." Ayana nodded once. She didn't trust herself to speak yet. "I've been hearing things about you," Caldwell continued. "Wanted to see for myself. Serena said I needed to pay attention." Ayana's stomach flipped. "You're connected with her? We've worked together for years." He smiled, brief but real. "She doesn't vouch lightly." Ayana looked him dead in the eyes. "What did you see today?" He didn't flinch. "Someone who deserves to be seen again." He handed her a card. "There's a training camp in D.C. next month. Invitation only. I want your name on that list. Full coverage. Travel included. That ankle better be healed." Before she could respond, he was already walking away, phone to his ear. Ayana stood on the edge of the court, soaked in sweat and disbelief, card in hand. She turned it over once, like it might vanish if she looked away. Coach Rivas stepped up behind her. "You earned that," he said simply. Ayana looked up at him, searching his face. "You sure?" she asked, voice quiet. Rivas didn't blink. "There's no shortcut to respect, Brooks, but there's also no denying when someone takes it, and you took it today." She didn't realize she was crying until the wind hit her cheeks and cooled the tears. Later that night, after her ankle was wrapped and she'd finally showered the match off her skin, Ayana sat outside the dorms alone. The academy had gone quiet. The courts lit only by security lights now. The night smelled of wet clay and pine. Her phone buzzed beside her. New message. "Serena Williams?" Watched the stream. That shot. That line shot. Legend-worthy. "Call me when you catch your breath." Ayana smiled, slow and genuine, for the first time all day. But before she could reply, another sound broke the stillness. Footsteps. She turned. Brielle stood in the path, arms crossed, face shadowed in the blue security light. But there was no smugness this time, just tension. "I should have won," she said flat. Ayana didn't stand. "But you didn't!" "I don't care what they said after. That shot doesn't make you better than me." Ayana's voice dropped. "I don't need to be better than you. I just need to be better than who I was yesterday." Brielle stared at her a long time. Then, "This place favors moments. I'm still the one they're building around," Ayana met her eyes. "Then, maybe they're building on the wrong foundation." Brielle's mouth twitched, something between a smirk and a threat. Then she turned and walked off. Ayana leaned back against the wall, staring up at the stars that peeked through the thinning clouds. She had won, but the war wasn't over. This academy had always belonged to girls like Brielle. But tonight, it had listened to a girl like her. But in the shadows of opportunity, envy festers. And not everyone watching Ayana's rise is ready to. And the echoes hadn't stopped. Ayana woke the next morning to a text from Coach Rivas. "Training's optional today." "You're not." Her ankle still throbbed from yesterday's match, even wrapped and elevated. The moment her foot hit the floor, a bolt of pain shot up her leg like fire racing a fuse. But she grit her teeth and stood anyway. If Rivas was calling her in, there was no room for excuses. Outside, the air was wet with humidity, the sun filtering through thick clouds like a light bulb behind gauze. Every step was a negotiation with pain, but Ayana's face remained unreadable. The soreness wasn't a setback, it was proof. Proof she'd gone all the way. When she limped through the gates of the training courts, she wasn't alone. Every court was alive, players drilling, coaches shouting, balls popping off rackets in crisp succession. But a ripple of attention moved with her. Conversations slowed as she passed, a few nods, even fewer smiles. But more eyes. That mattered. Coach Rivas waited at court 6, his arms folded, a clipboard under one arm. He gave her one quick glance, then looked at the ankle. "You, sure you can move." "No," Ayana said plainly, "but I'm here." Rivas didn't smile, but something behind his eyes softened. "Good. Because we've got something to talk about." He handed her the clipboard. On it was a list of matches, tournaments, a 3-month schedule. Ayana scanned it, heart thudding, faster with each line. "These are real qualifiers." "Yeah," Rivas said, "and your name is on the bubble for a wild card series." Her mouth opened, but no sound came. "You impressed more than Caldwell yesterday," he continued. "There's been noise, big names whispering, and this place listens when the right people speak." Ayana swallowed hard. "So, I made the cut?" "You're close," he clarified. "This is where it gets dangerous." She furrowed her brow. "How?" "Because now people start deciding whether you're a moment or a movement. And some of them, they'd rather you stayed a footnote." Ayana absorbed that, the weight of it. "Let them try," Rivas smirked. "You're getting good at this." She lifted her chin. "I'm just getting started." But Rivas was right. The energy had shifted, and not all of it was in her favor. Later that afternoon, while Ayana limped through a recovery stretch in the gym, she overheard 2 players whispering behind the weight racks. "She's getting all this attention for one win? Please. Serena's pushing her. That's the only reason she's still here." Ayana didn't flinch, didn't turn. But the words landed. Deep, not because they were true, because they were strategic. Spoken loud enough to sting, soft enough to deny. She stayed silent, but her jaw tightened. The resentment was growing, quiet but aggressive. Brielle had drawn first blood, but others were circling now too, like sharks scenting disruption. 2 nights later, Ayana found her duffel bag tossed outside her dorm room. Not left. Tossed. Her rackets were intact, but barely. One had a crack at the neck, the other was missing strings. Inside her room, someone had scrawled in Sharpie across her mirror. "Hype fades." She stared at it for a long moment, not shocked. Not even angry, just tired. This wasn't about tennis anymore. This was about space, territory. Her presence here, uninvited, unpolished, was a threat, a reminder that grit could upstage pedigree. And some people didn't like that reminder. She sat on the edge of her bed, eyes on the mirror, pain and defiance warring inside her. Then, calmly, she opened her phone and texted Serena, "You were right, it gets ugly fast." The reply came almost instantly. "Let them show you who they are. Then show them who you are." Ayana stared at those words, let them settle like anchors in her chest. By the end of the week, she had taped up her cracked racket and kept training. Rivas didn't mention the vandalism, but she could tell he knew. He pushed her harder in drills, didn't coddle her ankle. If anything, he got meaner, because he saw the fire catching inside her. During one-on-one conditioning, he pulled her aside. "You're leveling up." But with that comes two choices: intimidate or inspire. Right now, you're doing both. Ayana blinked. "Is that bad?" "It means you've got to pick who you're playing for." She thought about that all day. She thought about it when she soaked her ankle in an ice bath while Brielle laughed with the academy director outside her window. She thought about it when she restrung her own racket late at night, fingers cramping from tension, and she thought about it when she walked back to the courts early the next morning, only to find a new name added to the tournament board. National Wildcard Qualifier. Entry pending, Ayana Brooks. But right below it, someone had written in pen, "She'll choke under pressure." Ayana didn't erase it. She simply stared at it for a moment, then picked up her marker and wrote underneath, "Then let them see me do it up close." But as she turned to leave, she saw Brielle in the doorway, arms folded. "You think a wild card entry makes you bulletproof?" Ayana tilted her head. "No, just harder to kill. You don't belong in the same circuit as me." "You're right," Ayana said, stepping close enough to whisper. "I don't just belong there, I'm going to own it." For a beat, Brielle didn't respond. Then she smiled, tight, unkind. "See you on the court." But the way she said it didn't feel like a challenge. It felt like a warning, not the kind you say loud and clear. Not something obvious you can call out. It was quieter than that, colder. The type of threat people whisper through the machinery of systems where no fingerprints are ever found. But the weight of sabotage is unmistakable, and Ayana knew better than to ignore it. She'd grown up around quiet threats. Overdue eviction notices slipped under the door, courtesy calls from utility companies that sounded more like countdowns, sideways glances in places where she didn't look like she belonged. Her instincts were honed for this exact kind of storm, so when the tournament week began and she walked into the locker room to find her match time mysteriously changed, she didn't flinch. She checked the board. Her name was still there, but moved. An hour earlier than it had been the night before. No announcement, no heads up. A clerical error, they said. She ran to the court, ankle still taped, heart thudding with frustration, arriving with 3 minutes to spare. Brielle sat on the bench nearby, not even in her match gear, sipping an electrolyte drink. She looked up and smiled like a cat watching a mouse skitter across the kitchen floor. "Clock's ticking," she said sweetly. Ayana didn't respond. She just pulled her jacket off and began her warm-up right there, in front of the umpire, in front of the players gathering for their matches. Her breath came fast, but not from nerves. Rage, barely restrained. If they were going to twist the rules, she was going to force them to do it in daylight. The match began. She was stiff, unprepared, her foot dragging half a step behind. Her opponent, a lanky tactical player named Elise, took advantage quickly, 3-0 within 10 minutes. Ayana's head spun. Not from exertion, from fury. She wasn't losing because of Elise. She was losing because someone had yanked the rug out from under her and watched her try to balance. But then, between points, she looked up. Past the bleachers, past the fence, and she saw her, Serena. Leaning against the chain link, hood up, arms folded, watching. No camera crews, no entourage, no spotlight, just eyes. Locked. Ayana blinked. For a second, everything else fell away. She turned back to the court, took a deep breath, and reset her stance. If Brielle wanted to win in the shadows, Ayana would play in the open. Every serve, every point, she'd make it louder, clearer. She fought back. It wasn't graceful. It wasn't poetic. It was gritty, scrappy. The kind of tennis that didn't make highlight reels, but broke down opponents over time. 4. Her opponent called a timeout, shaken. Ayana walked to her towel, leaned. On the back wall, ankle pulsing, she looked up again. Serena was gone, but her presence lingered like heat in the concrete. She won 6-4. As she left the court, her shirt soaked through, she passed Coach Rivas, who didn't say anything. He just handed her a protein bar and nodded. "You're in the semis," he said. "Next match is with Claire Torres." Ayana nodded, already moving toward the showers. But before she reached the building, one of the academy assistants, a nervous-looking guy with a clipboard and a permanent stain on his collar, flagged her down. "Hey, weird question," he said, barely meeting her eyes. "Did you talk to Caldwell this morning?" "No," Ayana said, cautious. "Why?" "He stopped by, said he requested to watch your practice session today, but it wasn't on the schedule." Ayana's brow creased. "Because no one told me about it." He looked around and leaned in. "Something's going on with your name in the rotation. Stuff's getting moved, quietly." She stared at him. He hesitated. "You didn't hear it from me." Then he was gone. In the locker room, Ayana sat for a long time, her mind racing. It was more than just a bad bracket draw or an early match change. Someone was deliberately interfering. She pulled out her phone, 1 bar of service. She typed fast to Serena. "They're trying to drown me in red tape, moving matches, changing times, trying to make me slip." For a while, nothing. Then, let them try. When you move like water, they can't hold you. The next day, Ayana faced Claire Torres, the 2 seed in the bracket. Claire was quiet, surgical, no theatrics, no mind games, just discipline and technique. And that's what made her terrifying. The match was grueling, rally after rally, neither giving an inch. Claire's timing was unreal, her precision punishing. Ayana had to reach into places she hadn't touched since Saginaw. The desperation of scraping by, of learning how to fight with no backup plan. At one point, down 5-6 in the first set, Ayana chased a lob deep into the backcourt. Her foot slid. She went down hard, scraping her elbow, her racket bouncing away. For a second, the world spun. She stayed down, breath caught in her throat. Then she heard a voice from the bleachers, not Serena. Another woman, unfamiliar, yelling, "Stay down, if you're not ready." Ayana sat up slowly, blood dripping down her arm. Then she stood and won the next point. She clawed back, 1 shot at a time, her lungs burning, her ankle screaming, her vision blurring in the heat. The set stretched into a tiebreaker, and she took... "Wait," the crowd roared, but not for her, not yet. It was the roar of realization that she wasn't going away, that they might have to accept her. When she sealed the match with a baseline bullet, the assistant director on the sideline stood, stunned. Ayana barely looked at him. In the locker room afterward, a folded piece of paper waited on her bench. No. Envelope, no signature. Inside, typed in plain black font, "You don't get to rewrite the rules because of 1 win. Know your place." Ayana read it twice. Then she tore it in half and dropped it in the trash. But what she didn't know. What? No one told her. Was that across campus, in a private meeting room with glass walls and tinted windows? Brielle sat at a table with 2 board members from the academy. She wasn't smiling. She was planning. Brielle sat in the center of the long glass conference table, back straight, fingers interlocked, face blank. Across from her, 2 board members leaned forward, Mr. Langston, whose gray suit matched his hair, and Ms. Rivera, who hadn't blinked once since Brielle walked in. Their badges shimmered faintly under the fluorescent light, official and sterile. The mood was surgical. This wasn't a meeting. It was a negotiation, cloaked in professionalism. "She's become a distraction," Brielle said, her voice level, calm. Langston raised an eyebrow. "Oh, you mean Ayana?" "I mean the narrative around her," Brielle clarified. "She's not just a player anymore, she's a symbol. She gets special treatment, backed by Serena, buzz from the USTA, attention the rest of us earned with results, not storylines." Rivera finally spoke. Her tone was clipped, bureaucratic. "Your concern is that the Academy is playing favorites?" "I'm saying the ecosystem is off balance," Brielle said, leaning forward. "This place was built to develop professionals, not to babysit headlines, and right now, every player with a legitimate shot is being sidelined to make room for a good PR move." Langston tapped his pen against a file. "You've dominated this bracket for 2 years, Brielle, and you lost. Are you saying the system's broken, or are you just embarrassed?" The question landed like a slap, but Brielle didn't flinch. "This isn't about losing a match. It's about precedent," she said, voice harder now. "What happens when one viral story bends the system? How many more wild-card prodigies get fast-tracked while the rest of us grind through the mud?" Langston studied her for a long beat. Then Rivera slid a folder across the table. Inside, screenshots. Tweets, posts, DMs, rumors about Ayana's rise, whispers of favoritism, some subtle, some venomous. Rivera spoke again. "We've heard complaints, questions. From sponsors, too," Langston added. "There's concern that the Academy's image is shifting." "She's not a product of this system," Brielle said. "She's a challenge to it." Rivera nodded. "So what do you suggest?" Brielle hesitated. "Make her prove herself the right way. No celebrity endorsements, no Serena fast-tracking, just strip the noise, give her the path we had." Langston leaned back. "You want to handicap her?" "I want to level the court," Brielle replied. There was silence, then a quiet murmur of agreement. They didn't nod, but they heard her, and that was enough. Ayana knew nothing of the meeting when she arrived on court 1 for her final match of the week. The sky above was an open canvas, sharp blue, cloudless, the heat already pressing down on her shoulders like a weight. Her ankle was taped, but healing. Her body was sore, but strong. Her mind? Sharpened. The crowd today was double the size of her last match. Word had gotten out. The McDonald's girl was 1 win away from the wildcard showcase, a national spotlight. She'd even overheard a vendor say her name to a group of teenagers near the snack tent. "That girl right there, that's Ayana Brooks. She's the one Serena's been talking about." Ayana didn't let it swell her. She carried it carefully. Her opponent today was ruthless, Jules Park, known for her mind games and surgical shot placement. Ranked 3rd in the bracket, but first in trash talk, they met at the net, both stone-faced. Jules smiled slightly. "You're trending," she said. "That must be exhausting." Ayana tilted her head, more like motivating. "Careful. The higher the pedestal, the harder the fall." Ayana grinned, slow and tight. "Good thing I don't stand still long enough to fall." The match began tense, rallies long, tactical. Jules chipped at her rhythm, testing her movement, trying to pull Ayana into frustration. But Ayana had learned. She didn't bite. She flowed. Every stroke had intention. Every serve landed with conviction. And though Jules played well, damn well, it wasn't enough. Ayana had hit another gear, the kind of zone where instinct and preparation blended into something unstoppable. She took the first set 6-3. The second was tighter. Jules adjusted, hit deeper, slowed tempo. But Ayana refused to yield. She met every change with calculation, and when the final point landed, a cross-court return that dropped like a whisper just inside the line, the court erupted. She'd done it. 3 matches, 3 wins, into the showcase. Coach Rivas didn't say a word as she walked off the court. He just patted her shoulder twice before walking away like the proud silence was enough. But Serena texted within minutes. "I saw every shot. You're building a storm, Ayana. Don't let anyone tell you it's too loud." But the storm was about to hit back. That night, Ayana was summoned to the main office. Inside, Rivera sat behind a wide desk, a laminated tournament brochure resting beside. Heard Langston was there too? Ayana, Rivera said. Congratulations on qualifying. Thank you. There's been a change, Langston said, folding his hands. Given recent concerns around fairness and consistency, the board has decided to pause outside sponsorships tied to academy training. This includes external affiliations and representation. Ayana blinked. What does that mean? Rivera didn't look up from her paper. It means you're welcome to continue training here, but effective immediately, all third party. Sponsorships, including those from Ms. Williams, will be frozen until further evaluation. The words didn't make sense at first. They sat in the air, cold and alien. You're cutting me off from Serena? Langston smiled like it was a courtesy. We're just rebalancing the influence around your development, making sure it remains impartial. Ayana stood slowly. Her hands trembled, but she kept her voice steady. So let me get this straight, she said. I earned my spot. I play through injury, I beat the highest-ranked players in the bracket, and now that I'm rising, now you're worried about fairness. Rivera finally met her eyes. Ms. Brooks, this isn't personal. Ayana nodded. No, it's systemic. She turned to leave, every step heavier than the last. In the hallway, she dialed Serena, no answer. Voicemail. Ayana closed her eyes, jaw clenched. The system wasn't just pushing back. It was planning to bury her in silence, and for a moment, it almost worked. Ayana sat alone that night in the laundry room beneath the dorms, legs pulled to her chest, tennis clothes tumbling in the dryer like echoes of someone else's life. The machines hummed, pipes clinked overhead. The cement walls were cold, and the air reeked faintly of detergent and dust. She hadn't told anyone yet. Not Coach Rivas, not the other players, not even Serena, who still hadn't responded. Her mind played back the meeting on a loop. Rivera's sterile tone, Langston's patronizing half-smile. The way they made it sound like a courtesy, like being cut off from her greatest ally was just procedure. It wasn't. It was punishment, disguised as balance, dressed up in policy. And Ayana knew exactly why it was happening now, when she was on the cusp of something bigger than anyone expected. They hadn't planned for her to make it this far, so they were rewriting the rules mid-game. She stared at the dryer, eyes unfocused, until it stopped with a final mechanical sigh. Still, she didn't move, she didn't cry, but her chest felt hollow, like every breath echoed inside a space that had once been full of fire. Is this where it ends? Then her phone lit up. New message. Serena Williams. She opened it fast, heart thudding. I know what they did. I'm handling it. Ayana exhaled. Then another message followed. But I need to ask you something first. Do you want to walk away from this clean, or fight your way through the mud? Ayana stared at those words for a long time, not because she didn't know the answer, because she did. She typed back, let's get dirty. The next morning, Ayana showed up to training like nothing had happened. No hesitation, no flinch in her stride. She wore a simple white tank top and black shorts, clean, unbranded, her old shoes, soles peeling slightly. No Serena gear, no logos, just Ayana. She walked past Brielle, who raised an eyebrow as if expecting to see cracks. But Ayana didn't look at her, didn't need to. She went straight to Court 4, where Rivas waited, holding a new set of practice balls. He glanced at her, then at the empty space where Serena's bag used to sit on the sidelines. Something happen? He asked. Ayana met his eyes. They froze my sponsorship. His mouth tightened. You tell Serena? She knows. He nodded once, then tossed her a ball. Then, get on the baseline. That was it. No pity, no comfort, just work. And that's what she needed. She spent the next 2 hours grinding through footwork drills, her ankle grumbling, her shoulders aching, but her mind clear. Every shot was a message. I'm still here. I'm still rising. I don't need your permission to stay. By the end of the session, sweat poured down her back. Her tank top clung to her spine. She dropped to the bench chugging water, breath ragged. That's when Brielle approached. racket slung over her shoulder like a lazy trophy. Funny how quiet things get when Serena's name isn't floating over. "Your head," she said. Ayana didn't answer. Brielle leaned against the fence. "You've got heart, I'll give you that. But this place? It doesn't run on heart, it runs on legacy." Ayana stood slowly, wiped her face. "Legacy doesn't scare me," she said. "No?" Brielle's smile was sharp. "Then let's test." That, head-to-head, exhibition match, center court. "Tonight," Ayana blinked. "Why?" "Because I'm done whispering," Brielle said. "If we're going to fight for space, let's do it in front of everyone." Ayana studied her. The challenge was real, but so was the setup. This was a spectacle, a trap dressed as opportunity. Still, Ayana didn't hesitate. "Fine," she said. "But after tonight, no more sidelines, no more sabotage. You want to beat me? Do it with your game." Brielle's smile widened. "I plan to." Word of the match spread fast. By evening, the bleachers around center court were packed. Students, coaches, sponsors, even outside media who'd caught wind of the tension between the prodigy and the system's favorite. Everyone smelled blood. Rivas stood courtside, jaw clenched, arms crossed. "You sure about this?" he asked Ayana as she laced up. She nodded. "They want noise? I'll give them clarity." She walked onto the court under floodlights, every step deliberate. The heat had broken, replaced by a cool breeze that rippled the nets and sent murmurs. Through the crowd, Brielle entered from the other side in full designer gear, new racket, gleaming shoes, a posture that screamed preordained greatness. The umpire kept it brief. Then, "Play. First serve, Ayana." She bounced the ball. 1, 2, 3 times. The court was so silent she could hear her own pulse. She tossed, struck. The match began. And for 6 straight games, it was war. Rallies were brutal. Every point contested. Brielle played with the fury of someone trying to reassert dominance, not just on the court, but in the narrative. Ayana countered with something purer. Necessity. She didn't play for cameras. She played like someone who couldn't afford to lose. Set point. Ayana tossed the ball high, leg trembling beneath her. Then she hammered a serve down the line. Clean. Ace dot set to Ayana. The crowd erupted, and somewhere in the back row, Ayana caught the briefest glimpse of Serena, arms crossed, smile small but fierce. The second set began, and Brielle came back swinging. She took the first 3 games, fast, aggressive, loud. Ayana stumbled, her rhythm breaking, the pressure mounting. At 3-1, Brielle raised a hand to the crowd after a particularly brutal point, milking the moment. Ayana looked to Rivas. He didn't say anything, but his eyes told her, "Breathe, reset. Play your game," and she did. She clawed back. 3-5-5-6-6. Tiebreaker. Every shot felt like a declaration. Every grunt, every footstep, every serve, they weren't just movements, they were defiance. Match point, Ayana served wide. Brielle returned high. Ayana charged the net, backhand volley. Winner? The stadium didn't cheer, it exploded. Ayana stood frozen, racket still in hand, as the sound washed over her. She turned slowly. Brielle stood on the baseline, breathing hard, staring at her like she didn't quite believe what just happened. Then she walked to the net. No words, just the briefest handshake. The crowd didn't notice. They were already on. Their feet, chanting her name. "Ayana! Ayana! Ayana!" Back in the locker room, soaked in sweat and victory, Ayana finally picked up her phone. One new voicemail. She pressed play. Serena's voice, warm, steady. "That wasn't just a match, Ayana. That was a message, and the world just heard you." The message replayed in Ayana's head all night, even as exhaustion anchored her limbs, and the adrenaline drained from her body in waves. The cheers from center court still echoed in her bones. She hadn't slept, not really. She lay awake, watching the ceiling of her dorm room, reliving each point, each breath, each moment her racket made contact with the ball. This win had been different, Not just a personal triumph, not just a clapback at Brielle. It was proof. Tangible, undeniable proof that she belonged, not because of Serena, not because of a hashtag, but because of her grind, her resilience, her choice to stand and fight again and again. By morning, her name trended nationally, not as a novelty, not as a footnote, as a player. Sports blogs picked up the clip of her match-winning volley. Slow-motion replays looped with captions like, "The future has arrived," and "Ayana Brooks shocks the system." But what she cared about most wasn't trending. It was a voicemail from her mom. She hadn't heard from her in weeks, not since things started heating up. But now her voice cracked through the phone. "Baby, your Nana would have been so proud. I saw you. I saw you. You didn't just play that game, you owned it." Ayana sat on the edge of her bed, pressing the phone to her chest. Nana, the old courts at Wicky's Park, a rusted chain-link fence, plastic water bottles refilled from a garden hose. Her grandmother's voice behind her, "It's not about what they see in you, Ayana. It's about what you see. Don't forget that." She never had. The following week, the Academy hosted its annual charity tennis gala, a black tie event built to showcase elite players to potential sponsors, donors, and the tennis establishment. Normally, Ayana wouldn't have been invited. She wasn't in their polished inner circle, but this time they didn't have a choice. She arrived in a floor-length navy gown borrowed from one of the assistant coaches, her hair braided down her back, silver earrings catching the light. Every eye turned when she entered, not because of a viral tweet, but because she had earned her place. She walked like she belonged, because finally she knew she did. Brielle was already there. She wore white, like always, but tonight there was no smugness in her posture. She stood with a group of sponsors, but her eyes drifted to Ayana the moment she stepped in. For the first time, there was no challenge in her gaze, only respect. A silent nod passed between them. It was enough. Near the end of the night, Serena appeared at Ayana's side, dressed in sleek black, subtle and regal as ever. "You clean up nice," she teased. Ayana grinned. "You're not too bad yourself." Serena held a champagne flute untouched and gestured toward the stage. "They want you to speak." Ayana blinked. "Wait, me?" "They said, you're the face of what this academy is becoming." She stared. "Are you serious?" As a heart attack, Ayana swallowed the lump rising in her throat. "I don't know what to say." Serena placed a hand on her shoulder. "You'll know, just tell the truth." When Ayana stepped onto the stage, the room quieted. The spotlight hit her face. The microphone stood waiting. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from magnitude. She took a deep breath and began. "I grew up in Saginaw, Michigan. My first racket came from a yard sale. My first court didn't have a net, just 2 trash cans tied with rope." Laughter, warm and unexpected, rippled through the room. "I worked night shifts at McDonald's just to afford shoes that didn't make my feet bleed. I trained before sunrise, in the cold, because daylight hours belonged to responsibilities. Silence. But I never saw tennis as an escape. I saw it as a home, even when it didn't want me, even when the door stayed shut and the rules kept changing." She paused, eyes scanning the room. "Some of you knew who I was before I ever held a professional racket, not because of my stats, because of a story, a moment, a tweet, a few nods, some uncomfortable shifts. That moment was real, but so is the work I've done since. I'm not here because of a good deed. I'm here because I refuse to let the story end there." Applause light but steady. I had help. Serena Williams saw something in me before I did. She gave me a shot. And I ran with it. Because the truth is, black girls don't always get second chances. So when one comes, you don't take it lightly. You take it personally. Louder applause. Standing now, even Rivas, in the back, stood. Ayana's voice softened. "My grandmother used to say, you don't get to choose your starting line, but you sure as hell fight for your finish. So tonight, I want to dedicate everything I've done to her." She held up a small silver pendant from around her neck. It was her grandmother's, battered, worn, still gleaming. She was the first one to put a racket in my hand, and when she passed, I promised her I'd finish what we started. So this. Win? This life, this fight, it's hers too. Thunderous applause. Serena wiped her eyes. Even Brielle clapped. Ayana stepped off stage, breath catching, heart full. She'd done it. Not just the tournament, not just the speech. She had shifted the entire room. Later that night, under the stars outside the gala tent, Serena stood beside her. "You're not just a player now," she said. Ayana looked up. "Then what am I?" Serena smiled. "You're a beginning." That summer, Ayana entered the USTA Wildcard Showcase and made it all the way to the finals. She didn't win, but she didn't need to, because what mattered now was momentum. Brands reached out. Coaches called. The Academy publicly reinstated her sponsorship and apologized. But she didn't sign with the biggest agency. She chose a smaller one. Run by a black woman who believed in athletes as people first, she split her time between tournaments and volunteering at the very youth center Serena had built back in Saginaw. Because she remembered who she was before the lights, and she knew that somewhere another girl was holding a racket made of hope and rope and cracked pavement. Waiting, and years from now, when Ayana Brooks stood at the net at the U.S. Open, a full crowd roaring around her, the world watching, she wouldn't be thinking about sponsors or rankings or interviews. She'd be thinking of rain on fast food windows, of calloused hands and empty courts, of a good deed no one saw coming, and of a legacy she'd built, not through ease, but through everything that tried to break her and failed.